Hello, this video will be about turning certain values into interface functions. This is the second example, the first example being for the interaction system. Another video will be out explaining interfaces, however, I just need a lot more time editing that video. Anyway, let's start. The first thing you want to do is handle the bigger actors like players. Not all actors needs an interface, it would be unnecessary. See if those functions can be redone in classes like blueprint function libraries. So see here, one of the turn camera nodes. I actually have a few. Didn't realize I named them horribly. This is an event that I have used in the UI, which is where we are heading now. As you can see, it is called many times. It's one of our main functions and it keeps casting to the blueprint every time we hover on and off the buttons. Let's make the interface. Go to your BP folders, you can make an interface folder in here, so just right click, interfaces are found in the blueprints category, click on that under function library. Now just name it by _player. Now this is the empty graph, all it is are functions with no code. So our first function would be the activate turn camera, very important to name this different to all the other functions. Next, it is important to take note of what inputs and outputs there are. For this function, we just need an input, a float value called amount. Now compile and save, go to your player blueprint. Now to add interfaces to actors, you will need to go to the top and find class settings. It should open up a panel with the category interfaces. Here it will have the inherited interfaces from parent class and any you add yourself. So let's just add on the by_player. You should get a new section under functions called interfaces. You can now right-click and implement it. Now it does come as an event. If you want it to be a function, you could either create a return node in the interface or just right-click it and convert to function. Anyway, just drag this event to the old turn camera function that was created. Just do a swap with the events, drag the amount line to the new amount and the execution line too. You are safe to delete the old function. Compile it and then go to your user interface. These should show errors, we can now replace them with our interface function, so just delete the function and the cast. Now from the player pawn, you can get activate turn camera message event. Give it the same amount as before. Do the same for the other event, with different amount. Now let's see if it still works. Now just because we did this change, the last segment of this video will show you a good use of interfaces. If it works, good. Now we can do the other side. As you can see, we did the code in the UI. But that's not necessary. We can clean this up and put it in the pawn class. First, create a function called Deactivate Turn Camera. This one has no inputs. We can then compile and go to your player class again. This time, we got a new function that we can implement. We can add a branch first. The variable is the use FNAF 6 camera. This branch is not needed if you only have one camera style. Next, set the turn value after and make it 0. Finally, we just have to clear timer by function name. Since this is the FNAF1 camera style, we go to the FNAF1 camera event. I decide to rename it to turn camera yaw. Just to get a better name. Copy and paste that name to the clear timer by function name. However, now this creates a tiny new problem. We changed the function name, that means our set timer wouldn't work, because the names don't match. Now, we could change the name in this set timer, but a better fix is that we use set timers by events. So delete this set timer, and right click. Search for set timer by event. Now instead, we can just drag from this red box and do a create event. Select your event from this drop down. This also means that if you change the event name, this will automatically update. Just make sure to update the time and set it to looping. Anyway, that's our deactivate event done. Compile and go to your interface. Delete these nodes and from your get player pawn, write deactivate turn camera message event. That's now complete. We have the first segment done. Now let's say we go down a bit and find this monstrosity of a code that has various cast to nodes and widget information. You don't have to use interfaces to create functions, you could also do it, just to share information such as variables. Okay, so, go to the interface, and add a get camera mode function, or more specifically, this is to do with the security camera. So for this, we want to give it an output, which is a boolean and it is called camera mode. See compile and save and let's go back to the player. Now we have another function, we can double click it and here we now have one with a return node. All we have to do is give it the information we want to share. So for this, it's just getting the chem mode and putting that as the output. Now, go to the UI and we can now delete this cast. And from player pawn, we can just get the camera mode and connect that to the branch node. Okay, let's go down this line. We now have this security cameras array, we need to get that. It's the same thing now, just go to the interface and add a new function. Get camera array, needs an output of the type, security camera blueprint, make it object, and then select the sphere into an array. Name this output cameras. We can then compile and save, go to your player, find the function, in here, you can put that camera array variable. Okay, remember to compile and then come to the widget again. Over here, you want to get player pawn and then get camera array. This is a bit messy, just space these nodes out, connect that node to the get node, and then connect it with the rest of the false line. Delete any excess nodes. Now, quickly test it again to see if your security cameras work. With that working, we can now go on to learning how to set variables. I did say a note about this earlier, so if you understand at this point, try doing this bit by yourself and then watch the rest of the video. Okay, so, head over to the interface and write set in camera mode. Make it a boolean and it is not an array. Name it in camera mode. Now, compile and save, head over to the player class, right-click the set function and we want to implement it as event. We want to set our camera mode variable here, and hook it up to event. Now if we go back to our UI, we can replace our sets. From get player pawn, just set camera mode. Now, we also want to do it for this event too, do the same, we just want to tick it to true. We have pretty much converted this blueprint, now check if it works. With that working, let's go back to our player blueprint. I will show you what you can do now. Find a variable, for now, I will do the camera mode. If you right-click it, then click Find References. It will show you the variable in this specific class down in this box. Clickable and it will take you to where it is used. You can even search with words. Replacing these variables are useless as we don't need to use interfaces in here. However, there is a button at the end. If you click it, it should come with this pop-up. It will take some time to search through. It shows the references of this specific variable throughout your whole project. This is the best way to know where you are using your variables in which class and functions. We can also search up cast nodes, to check where we are casting. So I want to just with the player for now. We can then find these casts. Some leads to variables or functions like normal. We will take care of the casts later. Go back to your player BP. We will just deal with the camera mode variable only since we already made the interface functions for that. Okay, the first one in chem button, just get player pawn and set camera mode. We can tick it to true. Delete the old nodes and connect the function up. See if you can now do the rest of the chem variables by yourself. Now we have another problem, which is this player view reference. Let's create a new function in the interface and name it getPlayerMainView. Create an output and make it the type WPlayerWidget. Now compile, go to your player to give that function a return value. Compile and we can now go back to our chem button, and get player widget message. Now connect it up. I won't be replacing all the variables, it would be tedious and I want to see if you can do that on your own. If you have questions about what classes needs interfaces, and more understanding on it, comment below. Oh, here is a cast that I spotted. Since we already have created this function, we can just quickly replace it. When making changes like these, it is best to play and test regularly. Anyway, did you know that in Windows category up here, we have a few tools? One of them is the Find in Blueprints, which is the same as the Find References tool. Okay, let's just check for the cast to BP player. See what is left of this. Only 2. This one is the player widget ref. So we can just get from get player pawn, and just add the get player main UI and it should end up like this. Anyway, the last BP cast actually leads to this variable. Now this is also fine to do, I probably mentioned that earlier. Remember, the point of this is to just not cast frequently. I am just going to do it for the tutorial. Right-click your variable and do a Find References, this will now show where used it in this actor. Delete the old code now. The first one here is asking for the user interface. We can do a get player pawn and then get player widget. Link it up and delete all the unused nodes. We can now click on the other references and it leads us here, where we need to use the user interface nodes again. I will just copy and paste it. We continue repeating all this until we are safe to delete the character ref variable. Anyway, once all is cleared up, we can delete this character variable. We then test again. Now this section will show you how to make events that can be shared between multiple actors like the Interact interface. We are going to deal with animatronic head rotation. I did this in a video, maybe recently. Anyway, now I am going to show you how to call it in animatronics. First, find your animation blueprint, see if you have the function done. Make sure that the name you use for the interface is different to the function you used here. This interface function can then be called for all animatronics, no need to cast to those. Anyway, let's go to your interfaces and create a blueprint interface, a new one, just for animatronics animation class. Create a new function for head rotate. I also add in a Boolean input later on. Anyway, go to your animation blueprint, go to the class settings and add in your interface. Implement the event. Since we did the code, all we have to do is call our calculate head rotation function. I forgot to add the reset input for the interface, so I go back and add that Boolean input. Then named it reset. You can now connect it up. Compile and then I want to use this node in the AI controller. On the event begin play, I used a cast here, I then get the mesh and get anim instance. I would then call the head rotation function. This is only for testing, anyway, get a delay of 5 seconds, so we can catch it happening. Anyway, compile and I am also going to give Chica the head rotation. Since we are just copying and paste large amounts of the same code. This is not a good way to do it. You could have a master anim class if it is the same skeleton, or like I said before, make a function library. Remember to give Chica the animatronic animation interface and implement it. Go to Bonnie and just copy everything. In UE 4.26 and Unreal 5, you can just copy the functions straight. However, anything below 0.26, you will need to copy the code as well. Connect up the code, see if everything is right. Compile to check errors, then if you have variable errors, copy them over or right-click and create variable. After the function is done, go copy over the event graph such as the event begin play. Check if there are any errors, usually you just need to refresh a node or reconnect wires. After, we need copy the main animation part, which is the transform modify stuff. Compile it and then check if your animatronic looks like this. Let's now give our animatronic the animation blueprint. Go to Chica animatronic and then select the mesh. Select your animation below, we already called it before so we can just test it. This is the first part done. I want to see if you can do your game mode or maybe other classes as an interface for practice. Hope you enjoyed this. Consider subscribing and sharing. See you next time.